completely new to Blender, never used it, or you've been wanting to experiment with 3D, this is a perfect video for you. We're gonna do your first cinematic Moody render. So when you first open up Blender, you're gonna see the version you're on right here, and you're gonna see kind of different files you could open for VFX. That's good for like compositing and stuff, 2D animation in general. We're just gonna click out of it, and it's gonna be the first scene that you see. So to move around in Blender, you'll notice you'll press a lot of different things and almost nothing will work. So to get around, if you're using a keyboard and mouse, you're going to press down on your middle mouse and move your mouse around. You can start rotating around the object in 3D. I'm on laptop, so it's a little bit different for me. I just put 2 fingers on the trackpad and I can move around. So I'm gonna press A to get rid of everything. That selects everything in my scene that's visible. And from there, I'm gonna hit X, press OK to delete. We're gonna make a floor. So you're gonna press Shift A. You're gonna see a drop-down menu. And in that drop-down menu, you can just press, go over to the mesh, go to the top selection, which is plane, which is basically gonna drop down a floor for you. You're gonna press S to scale the mesh. We're gonna open it all the way up, probably to around right here. And then we're gonna hit, we're gonna put in a cube. So we're gonna hit Shift A, and then we're gonna hit cube this time. Then we're gonna press G to grab, Z on the Z for the Z axis. We're gonna hit number 1 just to get it right on top. And then you're gonna see everything I'm doing right here in case I forget to mention anything. So the reason I like to put in a cube when I make any sort of scene is to kind of get a scale going. So this cube is about 6 feet by 6 feet, so it's a good reference for a human-sized person. All right, now that we have a scale reference and a floor, let's do a really cheeky trick where you can just extrude images from planes. So to do this method, you're going to need to enable an add-on. So you're going to go to Edit, Preferences, and you're going to enable Images, Import and Export Images as Planes. You're going to check mark that, and then you're going to also check mark. You're going to look up Node Wrangler. That's going to be a cool little tool that you'll have access to as we work on this project. So I would say the most tedious part of this project is going to be making the geometry for the grocery store. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do now that we have our add-ons enabled is we're going to hit Shift A, and we're going to hit Image and Images as Planes. Go to Desktop, wherever you save the image. I'm going to link it down in the description. We're going to look up for groceryfortut.jpg, import, and then we're going to grab it with G, bring it up with Z. We're going to do a rotation. So for that, we just hit R, do X to rotate on the X-axis, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. Now to actually see the picture, because it's all gray, to actually see it, we're going to go over into this third globe. This is going to be your textured view. So this, we can scale this up with S, and we're going to push it back. And then from here, I'm going to hide this cube with, if you go over to the right and just click on that eyeball. So we're going to scale this, we're going to bring it up a little bit. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to hit this Y. This will lock us on to like the perfect Y-axis view. Then we're going to hit Shift A. We're going to make, let's start off with a couple of cubes. Yeah, let's do that. We're going to grab it, scale it. And to zoom in, we're gonna do Command. You're gonna scroll up on your scroll wheel. We're gonna move this, grab G, we can move wherever we want. And then we're gonna skip S, and then on the X-axis, we're gonna make it skinnier. Kind of make it look like these little milk cartons. And then, so now that we have that lined up, push this back G, Y, so it's right in front of the image. Squish that S, Y. Just gonna squish it within the Y axis. Kind of imagine what a milk carton would look like. Then we're gonna go into edit view. So to get into the edit view, we hit tab. Then you're gonna see some points on the corners, and that just kind of shows you where the vertices are. So we're gonna add a loop cut on the side. To add a loop cut, we're gonna hit Command R. And depending on where you have your mouse, it's gonna affect where it goes. So I want it on the side of it, on this side. All right, it's gonna cut it right in the middle. We can click, and then click again. And then we're gonna hit edge select mode. We're just gonna grab the top one. And then we're gonna grab it with G, pull it up with C. This will give us a milk carton look, a very simple milk. It's gonna be so far away, it's not gonna matter. But perfect, all right. And now we're gonna duplicate it. And to duplicate, we're gonna hit Option or Alt D. We're gonna move it over like that. And we're just gonna kind of put these throughout the scene. Probably fast forward this for y'all just so it's not so boring. But then when we come back, we should have a couple of milk cartons going. All right, so now I have a couple of milk cartons lined up. Then, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna hit Shift A. Let's grab a cylinder. Okay. I'm gonna scale it down, bring it up. Let's push this back towards the image, G and Y. I'm gonna get it close there. We're gonna go back to this Y view mode. We're gonna grab it again, and let's squish it. So to squish, really to scale, on the Z axis we're gonna hit S, Z, bring it down, S, X to make it skinny, S, Z. We're gonna find a shape that kind of looks like this, whipped cream. We're gonna keep this tutorial simple. In future tutorials, probably pay a little bit more attention to scaling it. So we could, if we wanted to, we could go into tab, go into edit mode, go into face select mode. Oh, and oops, a little mistake. So let me go back. Let's see what went wrong. So what I should have done was just scale it and bring it forward. So yeah, I'm sorry. So let's scale that. Let's bring it up like that on the Z axis. Now what we can do, let's go into face select mode and then rotate ourselves under the cylinder. You can press S and make that small. That kind of gives us a whipped cream container, sour cream container type shape. The same thing as before, we're gonna just duplicate it over 1,000,000 times. And the reason we're doing this is we're going to project the textures back onto this geometry. And it's gonna basically act as skin or a sticker that'll wrap around all of these objects. But really what we're doing this for is not only is it gonna give it texture, but when we light it, it's gonna give it shadows, which is really gonna give it depth, which is what we're looking for. Okay. So, and that's kind of the idea. And then what I should have been doing is grabbing chunks of these, bringing them up. Oh. Grabbing chunks of these, make sure deselecting the background. Option D, bringing them up. Just grabbing wherever you think a milk should go. Make sure the background isn't highlighted. Bringing it up. Do the same throughout. I'm gonna probably grab a couple of these. Bring them over here. And then you kind of get the idea. Grab this bottom row. Deselect. Let's bring it down. Alright, so now that we have that, and then what I'm doing here to zoom is, as you can see, I'm hitting Command and then using my scroll wheel. Let's fill in these gaps so they're not just floating. Okay, so how are we gonna do that? We're gonna hit Shift A, Mesh, and go over to Cube. We're gonna grab it on the Z-axis, press S to scale it, Z to scale it down on the Z-axis. We're going to squish it to really just make a little shelf. Scale on the Y. Let's bring it back. Go back to this view just so we make sure we're lining it up. And then we're going to make sure we're sliding it into place, grabbing it with G. Make sure it's sliding in with Y. And then we're going to scale this on the X-axis. Same thing. Just duplicate it with Option D. Then for this bottom one, here's what we're going to do. We're going to grab it on the Z-axis, move it down. We're going to scale it with the Z. This will be the bottom of the refrigerator. And this guy will be the top. All right. So far, this is what our scene is looking like. But this is where the magic happens. So, we're gonna switch from our layout view and our /3D view. We're gonna go over to the shading view. And if you're clicking on the images plane, you're gonna see the image is selected, and this is what's feeding into the plane. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna hide that. Okay, so we're gonna try to find that in our million layers. We're gonna hide that for right now. Actually, we're gonna hide it for the rest of the tutorial. Go back to the Y-axis, and let's hit. Actually, let's box select. So what we're gonna do is, by left clicking and holding, we're gonna box select all of the objects that are part of the groceries. We're gonna go to the shading view, go to the Y-axis again. We're gonna hit Command J. Let's do it again. Command J. Should join the geometry. Sorry, Control J. So now that we hit Control J, everything is one big piece. Which is going to be good for when we're retexturing it. To add a texture to any object, we are going to hit New, Plus, and then here you have a couple of different sliders you can mess with, like roughness, metallic, IOR in case something is transparent or shiny. If you click on base color, you're gonna get this wheel. You can make it any color you want. But what we're gonna do is something a little bit cheeky. And we are going to hit Shift A, search. We're gonna search image texture. And we're gonna connect the color into the base color. And now our image is being connected. Oh, never mind, hold on. We gotta open up the image, which is the grocery store. Open image. Now we have an image running through our geometry. But it doesn't look right. Now why is that? It's because we haven't unwrapped it. So we're gonna hit Tab, we're gonna hit A, so we're selecting all the geometry. We're gonna hit U to unwrap it. And don't worry about what unwrapping really means. It's really just opening up your geometry so you can lay a flat pattern on it. I'm gonna hit Unwrap. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to this slider. Right over here, we're gonna click on this drop-down menu. We're gonna go to UV Editor. And this is what it unwrapped to. Which is kind of messy and why it doesn't look good. So what we're gonna do is while we're in the Y-axis view, it's very important. While we're in this Y-axis view, we're gonna hit U. And we're gonna do Project from View. And then over here, we're gonna make sure we hit A. We're gonna scale it up so it kind of fits what we were working on. So A, G, just like when you're working in 3D, we're gonna scale it. And whatever looks good, again, this is just background stuff. And just like that, you have a little grocery shelf. Somewhat. So while we're in here, let's also add a texture to our floor. So to add a texture to the floor, we're gonna hit New. We're gonna press the floor and we're gonna add a texture to it. Now, where do you get textures, high quality textures for your 3D objects? We're gonna go to polyhaven.com and this is where you can get free high quality textures, HDRIs. We're gonna browse textures and we're gonna look for a tiled floor. Something that would kind of resemble an old grocery store. Do this one. It's got a FNAF vibe. You're gonna hit download. It's gonna go to your downloads. And then from there, make sure you know where it went to, name it something so you know where it is and you remember it. From there, all right, now that you have your texture downloaded, we're gonna go back to the shading view, to the shader editor. And we're gonna zoom out. You can do this by scrolling. Scroll in and out. You can zoom in and out of your view. So, now that you have your node wrangler enabled, which we did earlier, we're gonna scroll down to this drop-down menu right here until we find node wrangler. Then we're gonna make sure we click on this green box. And we're gonna add principled setup. We're gonna find where this texture was. Locate it where it says textures. And then you're gonna see a bunch of different images. We wanna make sure we hit all of them. So we can do that by pressing A. And then we're gonna press this blue button, principled texture setup. Click down on it, and then it's automatically gonna set up the texture for us. Now this is way too big for one floor, especially for our scene. Let's make it smaller or more checkered. So we're gonna scroll over past all of these little lines and ropes. We're gonna zoom in to the mapping node. And then we're going to click on all these sliders. So basically click on the top one, hold, and then bring your cursor down. And we're gonna press, let's try like a 5. I think that would look pretty good. Yeah, I think that should work for now. All right, so we're, I would say, pretty close to halfway done with this scene. Let's go back to layout view. We could slide this back a little bit, GUI. The other thing we can do is probably add a back plate. So let's grab a cube, let's just make a little wall for this. All right, so now you should be a little bit more comfortable grabbing stuff, scaling it on the Y-axis. Maybe you can grab it from the X, just make sure we're lined up. Scaling it, bringing it up, bringing it close. All right, and then we're gonna scale it on the X. So, the next thing we're gonna do is add a camera. So, we're gonna go into this Y view, we're gonna hit Shift A, and scroll down to where we see camera. And then with the camera, you'll see it spawn a camera right in the middle of the world, in the world origin. You can grab it by pressing G. And you can move it wherever you want. And then let's just say you wanted a close up. You want to see what that looks like. You're gonna hit the camera button over here to the right. This is what the camera sees. And if you're still selecting the camera, you can press G again. And you can move around, just like this. But what we're gonna do is move out of the camera view by just orbiting it, right? Like we have been doing. And you know what, we're gonna go back to the camera view. And another technique we're gonna try is hitting Shift squiggly line, right? Whatever this is up next to the number 1. And then you can put WASD. You can move around like a video game, which is a little bit easier to kind of set up a camera, at least with my brain. So let's set it up right around here. Then we're gonna set up a couple of cubes. So what I'm envisioning is, we're gonna grab this, a couple of refrigerators on either side. So remove the cube to the side over here, scale it up on the Z-axis, then duplicate it, Option D, and then while I hit Option D, I'm gonna move it to the X. Just do the same thing, Option D, I'm gonna hit G, Y, Option D, GX, I'll be doing one more of each, Option D, just move it on the Y, Option D, move it on the Y. Move this all towards the center. Now let's see what it looks like when we actually see it in this shading view. This is what you would see basically in the final render. So before we do anything, let's make sure a couple of important settings are clicked. So we're gonna go to the right view, we're gonna hit this little menu bar right here. We're gonna hit the render settings. We're gonna make sure we're in EV, just because it's a lot easier on most computers. I'm running it on a laptop, so you know it should work for your computer as well. We're gonna hit ambient occlusion, we're gonna turn on bloom, screen space reflections, motion blur, all that good stuff. In a future video, we'll kind of go over what each one of these does. Bloom kind of gives you more of a glow around lights. Motion blur does what it says. Screen space reflections kind of fakes reflections based off of what is visible to your camera. So now that we have all these settings enabled, let's also mess with color management on the drop-down menu. We're gonna switch this to standard. I just really like this color just a little bit more. It just gives your scene a little bit more contrast. Then we're gonna go over to the world view, or the world tab. And then we're gonna hit X on the world right here. It's gonna turn everything dark. So to give our scene light, we're gonna hit Shift A, and we're gonna look for the light. So light, and then we're gonna hit area. Now there's a square. Now if we pick it up, G, Z, let's lift it up. You can see it's set up a nice little light. We're gonna lift it. Let's just crank it up. We're gonna go over to the data tab. I never knew it was named that. We're gonna crank it up so you can move it up with the slider, or you could throw in an arbitrary number. Put like 100 in here, and then we're gonna move this back on the y-axis. So G, Y, let's just move it back. This is gonna be the focal point of our scene. Go back to the camera, this is what the camera would see. And obviously, every Moody render needs to be blue. Every artist knows this. Every Moody render, under the Moody render hashtag, knows this. And now you can start seeing the look we're going for. I'm gonna make this back plate, just gonna make it a little shiny, a little metallic. There you go, kind of like that. You know, we can also move this to make it look like it's just lighting up the groceries. That'd be kind of cool. So we can scale it just like everything else. Scale on X. It's kind of a cool look. And then let's also duplicate this so we can get better lighting. So Option D, let's move this forward a little bit too. Crank this to halfway, maybe. Yeah, I'm kind of liking that. Okay. Now, to make the refrigerator texture, let's go back to texture view, or the shading view. And let's click on one of these cubes. We're gonna hit Tab. Go to the face. And let's hit I. This is gonna make an inset, but see, that doesn't look correct. Before we do that, let's hop back out of edit mode. Let's apply scale. And then when we grab this face again, make sure we're in face select mode. We're gonna grab this front face, hit I. There we go, it's a little bit more proportional. We're gonna make a little glass shader, right? So imagine when you're walking down an aisle, what those little freezers look like. That's what we're gonna try to emulate in a very, very simple way. So now that we've set that up, let's actually make this easy. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to delete the other ones. And then from that view, we can just Option D, G, Y. Actually, you know, let's just keep it simple. Let's add a material. So to everything, we're gonna hit A, let's hit new. We're just gonna make everything black. And then we're gonna hit the inside. We're gonna hit a plus. We're gonna hit new. Then we're gonna hit assign. Go also make this black. It's not really important. We're gonna drop the roughness all the way down. That's really the important part. Then we're gonna go back into shading. What we want to do is, because most things in real life aren't this perfectly straight, we're gonna kind of give it a wiggle on the glass, like it's flexing a little bit. So we're gonna hit search. We're gonna look up a noise texture. And all a noise texture is like a bunch of blotches. You'll see it right here. But instead of running it through the color, let's run it through the normal. But if we just run it through the normal, and on normal is just a way to kind of fake shadows without geometry. You can't really tell here, but I guess because it's just lifting everything. That's not what we want to do. So what we have to do is run this noise through a bump node, then the factor into height, and then normal into normal. Now if we hit out of edit mode, you can see we've created the nether portal, and that's not what we want. We want to lessen that, so in scale, let's hit 1. And that's cool, it's a little bit extreme, so let's do 0.05. And that's not enough. I'm sorry, 0.5. That'll work. Maybe 0.2. 0.4. Yeah, 0.4 is perfect. Alright. Then, for the other material, if we wanted to, I could give it a little bit more shine. We'll go back to the main material. Make that a little shiny. Maybe a little metallic. Oh, that's sick. So now we can start duplicating this over again. So option GY, and then option GY. Yeah, once more. GY. Same thing. Option G. Okay, what? Oh, option D, I'm sorry. G, X. And if you bring it over and it doesn't look right, it's because you need to rotate it. So we're gonna hit R. I'm gonna rotate it 180 degrees, so Z, 180. Push this forward. Bring this towards me. Also, what would make this a little bit easier to kind of focus on what the camera is seeing, we're going to go to the camera, right click on camera, make sure we're on the camera tab, let's go to viewport display, let's turn this passport all the way up, this way we can see what the camera would see. And now, if we go into viewport shading, what do we have here? Something moody, something cinematic if you will. And if you really want to get cinematic with it, if you want to fake the anamorphic look, just start messing with this. Give it that skinny look. The cinemascope look, I think it's called? I'm not sure. What do I know? Anyways, so now we're very, very close to what we wanted to do. The next thing we can do is, and also to what kind of helps me separate the geometries, we're going to go to this drop down menu. We're going to go and hit random so I can tell what's what. We are going to hit Shift A one more time, and we're going to hit text because we want to make a neon sign. So now we have this text right here. We're going to lift it up with GZ. We're going to rotate it R, X, 90. And then here, where the A is, we're gonna have a couple different options, right? So number one, we want to center this. And then we want to write something. So let's just say, what do we want this to say? We'll make this say something like smile. Okay. And then we can push this back, G and Y. And go back to the camera view, kind of set up how you'd want it to look. Imagine where a sign would go in like a dairy aisle. And then let's just say you're not the biggest fan of this font. You can import your fonts. So right here, you're gonna click down on font, and then go to wherever your fonts are located. I have a couple fonts right here. I'm gonna do something probably cursive. So I have this cursive font. I'm gonna make it big. Center it right here. Perfect. Now if we go back into viewport shading mode, you can see we can't really see it. That's because it's not really lit up, but rather than adding a light near it, let's make it emissive. So we hit a plus, we're gonna hit this green circle on surface. We're gonna change this to emissions. And just like that, you have a little neon sign. We're gonna make mine red. And then really neon signs, to give it a different look, what we can do is go to geometry. Oh, here we go. Shape. We're going to fill mode. We're going to hit none. It's going to make it disappear. Then we're going to scroll down to bevel. All right, we're going to open up this drop down menu. While hitting shift, we're going to scroll down a little bit. That'll kind of give it an outline. And that's exactly what we want. So what I want to do is, I kind of want to make my ground a little bit more shiny. So we're going to go back to the shading. And what we're going to do is, while we're in, let's go back to camera view, let's go back into the actual shading. I'm going to add a color ramp. Basically, this is something that will affect the intensity of different nodes. So we're going to crank this up, see if that does what we want. So I think that's making it shiny. How do we know? Sometimes easier to see. Oh yeah, there we go. The other thing we're gonna do is, now that we've cranked that up, you can see that's made it shinier, like a greasy floor. And also make this much bigger. Move it forward. Duplicate a few more of these. I grab all of them. Option D, move them down the Y. Alright, so then we can push the camera back while, let's put it right here. Alright, let's see what we're working with. Look at that. Already a lot cooler. Probably set up another light. So while we're in this view, we could grab this light, same thing, just duplicate it, Option D. Just move it wherever you'd like, wherever you think would be cool. So I'm gonna grab it, move it up here. I'm gonna crank up the intensity, maybe to 100. There we go. That's already becoming pretty cool. And just like that, we have a really cool render. All we have to do now is animate the camera. So we can grab the camera, then we can just hit I on location rotation. What that's doing is setting a keyframe on location rotation. We can move up forward. Let's do it like this. set it to 20. And then we're gonna move the camera, like I showed you before with WASD. Just move it forward like this. And right here, let's just hit I again, location rotation. And just like that, we have a keyframe. But if you press play, you'll notice it's way too fast. So what we can do is we can grab this keyframe and move it down wherever we would like. And we have this really cool panning in animation into the smile. So that's pretty much the tutorial. All you have to do now is go into output. We're gonna hit this little folder icon, then pick where you want this to go. Hit this little button right here if you want to create a new folder where you want it to go. Let's just call this grocery store animation. You double click it, accept. It's going to render out a PNG sequence, which is really good if you really want to start messing around with it, like in some sort of post-processing software like DaVinci, some video editor, Adobe Premiere. But if you just wanted to straight up upload this to Instagram, what you would do instead is go to file format. Let's change this from PNG to an FMPG video. That's going to convert it to a video once it's done. And speaking of Instagram, let's just say you wanted to make this a something for social media. All you'd want to do is switch these numbers around. So put 1080 up top and 1920 on the bottom. And then the camera sets it up for that resolution. And now you have a Moody clicking render for social media. Sweet. Yeah, and also, so now that you're done, feel free to experiment. Now that you know how to kind of mess around with stuff, add more lights, add more geometry, add some different lights, add some different camera moves, and just really experiment. That's really what this software is about at the end of the day. Aside from that, I'd love to see your guys' render. Go ahead and tag me if you ended up making it this far, and I'll see you next time. Peace.